Good morning, everybody out there in Cyberland and all of my lovely people in here right now. It is so thrilling. And I love what David, he talked about who we are. And basically, the thing that struck me is that we're all one. And that's how we uplift each other. The title today is The Wisdom You're Already Living, but that's something we're born with. And when David talked about us all being loved, we knew that back when. And then we go to school and things happen and we forget that. That memory falls away. And when I think about what he said about being all one, now how many of you have been to the doctor's office and read one of the countless editions of National Geographic? And there's this, I know every one of you has seen this. And there's this article, and it shows the forest up close. You know, when you see every tree, and then over across the page from it are the hair follicles. You've seen that, and you can't tell them apart. We're all one. Everything is one. And you may get the lesson through a filter that means something to you. We've got all these great teachers, Wayne Dyer, Mary Ann Williamson, Carolyn Miss. Everyone is filtering their understanding through their background. And that's what we do for each other. We're all one. And then when somebody is in anguish, the rest of us pick up. That's what we do. When I think about the prayers that we are asking, and I'm going to talk about this later, about how we need to be detached from this, but what we do as a group in prayer, when we are too close, we can't see things as we learn what the truth is. That's what we do here at Harmony Spiritual Center. We're a teaching center, and we go through different stages of awareness and so on and so forth. But when we need a prayer, it's just too damn personal. You know? It is. That we're in anguish, and no matter how much we've learned, how much we've become aware, it all goes to pot. And I'm going to give a personal illustration. I think most of you know this about Glenn and I. Which, by the way, we have the titles of minister that doesn't mean anything. What we are teachers because we've lived a life. We've been in the pit and we've clawed our way out and become incrementally better. Now until even at 80, we were still learning to be better. You all know that Glenn's son, who is my stepson for 40 years, passed away, and he was a drug user. And the strangest thing happened because of Glenn was so close and we were so close. It's like, how can we make this better? We're tied up in knots. And anybody that's had a child that's ill, a handicapped child, maybe your child's mongoloid or has cerebral palsy or something, you're too close. I don't care what you know. You're too close. So when Mike passed away, our life had been good when we were financially stable and everything, but in our mind, we needed X amount of thousands of dollars if we wanted to retire. The day of his funeral, Glenn got a phone call, and it was to build a job, something he'd never done before, which are gabion basket walls, and it was for private individuals around this beautiful creek. He didn't know how to do that, but he was going to go meet with the man. He hung up from that person. And his nephew calls, and I said, Bo is in the same kind of business. I said, Bo, do you know how to do this? Oh, sure. He came out and he met Glenn. He gave him a list of suppliers, the instructions on how to do this. Glenn got a multi-million-dollar job that day. And now he's been working in construction for 70 years. Why didn't this happen before? We come to Harmony Spiritual Center. We knew all the increments of awareness that we have learned, but there was still that barrier. You can't not have that barrier when there's something wrong with your family member. So that's what we do when we ask for prayer. That you know that you're in anguish, but the rest of us can be detached and remember that God does heal. That God can perform miracles, but you're wrapped up in the anguish of your situation. So the rest of us pray from that detached place and then knowing that God does what it does. Now I'm going to tell you another story that you've learned before. And this is also about healing. And we're getting to the fact that we know how to heal. I'm just going the long way around. We had a very remarkable weekend in New York when we went to visit our son. Every day there was some instance, because I had gone up there and Matt's friend Jack was dying of AIDS. And he wanted me to do something. And I was berating myself, why can't I heal this child? Why can't I, affect some change, so on and so forth. And I was just really wrapped up in my own drama about not being able to do all the things that I knew could be done. So we're in the doctor's office because Matt had broken his leg in an audition. And so he's there to get his cast off, and Glenn and I are sitting in the waiting room. And this very large in every way, a black lady dressed in like a peacock, all the beautiful colors, her turban, her garments, and she started speaking to us in this beautiful Bahamian accent. We hadn't heard an accent like that since we were in the Bahamas, and we went into a black church and they were singing the Lord's Prayer. It's wonderful to hear in a Bahamian melody. But anyway, back to the lady. And so she's just chit-chatting with us. And of course, this is on Park Avenue, and the receptionist comes out and she says to the lady, who was very obviously not like the rest, one of these things is not like the other. So she said, "Do you have an appointment here?" And the lady said, "No, I'm here to see these people." She said, and she went back. And then the lady said to me, "Now tomorrow, you're going to do your work. Do not do this in front of other people. There will be someone there that's a barrier. Go in the bathroom, wash your hands, pray your prayer, and then come out and do this silently." And then she's changed the subject and started talking about how she was always psychic as a child and so on and so forth. So the next day, we got on the train and went out to see Jack. And he was one of the many kids that had always hung around our house, and he wanted a certain sandwich that I made for the kids. Well, I got there and he had that, I can't remember the word, but anyway, it's sores in the mouth and on the body that AIDS people get. He couldn't have eaten this sandwich. It was too crunchy. I made it, but I knew he couldn't eat it. But there was his father, an evangelical minister that spent the whole time visiting, and the mother wouldn't come because Jack was a sinner. And the father was berating this kid and telling him he was going to die because of his evil ways. I came very close to being a murderer, but restrained myself. But Jack had already chosen death. He believed his father. And within 3 days, he was gone. So there I am, distraught because I couldn't heal this kid. Then later in the weekend, we had lunch or dinner with the cast of Nonsense, and then somebody was sitting at the next table and we started chatting, and they told us about Eric Butterworth. So we went to hear Eric Butterworth, and he was really older than us. They had to help him up to the podium and get him hitched on to the podium, and his voice was so weak, and it was so silent because he was so wonderful. Everybody wanted to hear what he said. So finally, he said two things that meant something to me. One is, there are no incurable people, or no incurable diseases. There are incurable people. The other one, he said, it's none of your business whether this person gets healed. And it dawned on me that all this time, I'd made it about me. Rather than being an instrument, you may not be able to heal an individual. You can say the prayer that will uplift the energy in the room. You don't know if that person has a contract to go through what they're going through, because it's none of your business. You do have to love them. You do have to pray for them and uplift the energy in the room and know that God is in every one of us. As David said, we are all one. You can uplift the energy in the room. You can reduce pain. You can do all sorts of things, but it is never you. And the last time I spoke, I talked about us being, that my view, even before metaphysics, was that somehow we are like those little clear bulb-looking things. They called them crystals for the old-fashioned radios. And then they become loose. And then you went in there and you twisted them and they get hooked back up to the one source. Well, that's all we have to do. That's all we have to do because we're born knowing how to do these things. And what we do here at Harmony is go along and remind each other to the next step for whatever our individual filter is. You know, whatever book we read. You know, it may be someone as esoteric as Carolyn Miss that strikes a fancy with one of you, and then somebody else like me, I just want it down to earth. Give me Wayne Dyer, you know? That's my filter. I can relate to that. So we don't know where our inspiration might come from. But back to, we come in with this. I've told you before about the incident with my son Mark when he was 2. He's nearly 50 now. And he couldn't do this or say this. He would not even remember. But then he was in real close contact with the one source. And he skinned his knee, and I said, well, come here and let Mama kiss it for you. He said, well, you don't need to do that. I said, oh, really? Why not? And he said, well, I'll send my soldiers to heal it. And I said, really? Where do these soldiers live? And he said, down here behind my heart. All right, that's one of the healing glands that we have. That is exactly where healing comes from. But we know those things when we come in, but we forget them. So we're born as the perfect specimen. We come in with the perfect body. It's like a magic chariot. And yet sometimes when some of us die, we die as a used Edsel. So what happens? We did it to ourselves. You know, if we would just back off and let our own body speak to us, it would tell us what to eat. It would tell us to, you know, go lay down and get some rest, for goodness sakes. Mark Twain said, talking about what our mind does to us, he says, I believe in mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. Okay, well, that's the precursor for detachment. It don't matter. It don't matter. And why get caught up in the drama of the moment? And instead, turn away and latch on to God. But yet, when you're in anguish, no matter how much you know, when you don't let go of your ill child, and the moment that that was gone for us, it was like the roadblock was moved. And just everything started pouring into our lives. It wasn't happenstance. It was too quirky, too real, and bam, 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 bam. And that's what we can do. If we have the ability to step away from whatever our barrier is and get back to the knowing, it's like when you first get into the healing modalities, one of the things that you learn to do is to distract. You have someone, say, that has a bad knee, and you're working on the knee, and all they can talk about is how painful this knee is. And I mean, suddenly it's just like Mount Shasta there in their mind. And so you say, I noticed that there's something going on with your shoulder. And then their focus gets off, and the barrier's removed from the knee, and they're thinking about their shoulder, and then you can send the energy. It's like when your three-year-old throws a tantrum in the grocery store, and you could go crazy, or you could say, "Oh, look, a unicorn," Change your focus. Or if you, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Or if you've ever dealt with someone with an Alzheimer's patient and they're asking for their dead spouse, why have them go through grief 30 times a day, brand new every time, like that person just passed? Why don't you just say, oh, they've gone shopping or whatever? Distract. And if you have to distract yourself, go to the knowing. You know that God heals. You've seen it. If you can just inch your way out of that moment of anguish and lock into, at least for a minute, I know God heals. I don't know what the future is for this situation, but I know God heals. So it's our natural inclination to be well. Our body's wisdom wants to be well. We want to be ageless and timeless. We want to do all the things, and we know that that's possible. But do we think it's for other people? We're all one. We have that wisdom. We were born with it. So just point away from whatever that is that you're focusing on. Now, there's 10 things that when you're trying to go to the wisdom that you need to remember. 1, you have a higher purpose. Whatever the situation is has a higher purpose. Now, I know in traditional religion, it's like they've made God a villain, and they say, well, this is for the best. Well, that's not good enough. But what we do here is we teach you about looking at things from a detached point of view. So that is your higher purpose, to become intimate with the way of conducting life, the way of using these metaphysical lessons until it's natural with you. 2, you are in communion with all of life. I don't care if the situation is in this room with you, or If it's in Holland, there is no time or space. You can say the word and know that God is present in that situation in Holland. 3, your awareness is always open to change. Right now, the world is going at such a fast pace. The population of the world, they talk about in traditional religion, the ascension, but they reserve it for just 2 or 3 people, only the good ones. But the truth is, the whole world is ascending in consciousness. That's what all this drama is about, to poke you in the butt and make you rise up in awareness that you can't go on thinking the way you were thinking. Number 4, feel acceptance without judgment. The average person is too busy thinking about their own stuff to make a judgment on you. And you're accepting this fantasy in your mind of their judgment, and it's not the truth of things. It's just a temporary moment, and you don't need to give power to it. Every cell is in automatic agreement to work for the common good, and that's what we do as mankind. We have an unwritten need to work for the common good. The heart doesn't say to the kidney, I'm more valuable than you. It doesn't work that way. Every cell of your body is in communion with each other to work for the common good. And just like the hair follicles in the forest, that's what we do as individual hair follicles or trees or whatever to work for the common good. Trees communicate with each other in the forest. Our cells communicate with each other in our bodies. And we're sending off communication with each other. But what we know at Harmony is to make sure that that consciousness is of the most helpful thing. Number 5, you seize every moment with renewed creativity. David talked about what we learn here is being co-creators with God. That's what we do. We take these lessons that Jesus talked about in the Bible, the things of practical Christianity, of a spirituality rather than religion, and we apply these creatively to our lives. I don't know if you've noticed, but as an artist, anybody that is creative, they're multi-talented. They can paint, they can cook, or maybe they can sing and they can write, but they have more than one gift. But the truth is, the gift is being able to tap in to the one source. That's the gift. It's not the expression. That's the source energy filtering through you and your history to express whatever is creative in your gift. But the gift, again, is being into the one source. 6, the body is totally efficient in letting the flow of life bring you what you need. Are you creating a roadblock of something that's personal to you? Now, sometimes you can't help it. You've got that roadblock, but the first step is recognizing that you have a specific roadblock. And then you can begin to change. You'll be inspired through something you read or something you see or a person you meet on what they've done to change their roadblock. 7, the body always feels a connection with its source. 8, your body knows that it is cradled in the rhythms of the universe. You may not know it. You may be creating static and trying to counteract its own innate knowledge. Your body knows what to do to be healthy. If you have an ailment of some kind, you may get the answer in a dream and symbolically, but your body is able to tell you if you just shut up and listen. Your body automatically gives of itself. You've got this energy field around you. You can't help but give of yourself. But what are you giving? I know you've all been around somebody that's had an argument, and you walk into the room and you think, excuse me, I'm out of here. You know, that body is giving of itself. Every moment of every day you're giving. But when we learn here about healing and loving and being positive, we take that out into the world. We're twisting our little crystal to rejoin with the source. So whatever changes in your body, it instinctively knows that the energy with which it operates is immortal. This is just your vehicle of who you are now. You know, it may be that used Edsel. Or maybe like Glenn's truck, you keep giving it oil. It's got 4,000 miles, 400,000 miles. It rattles, it bangs, but it can sure haul lumber. So, you know, this vehicle is just this expression. Whatever your color, whatever your gender, whatever your orientation, it's a school uniform, people. You know, and we know that here. So when we see someone that may not be a wasp, and we are, or we know still we are one with them. And we give off that energy of that oneness. And there is a love there that's just automatic, and you don't come in to the conflict that other people may face. So, none of those are spiritual aspirations, really. It's just the facts about your physical body, the wisdom you're already born with. You know the things that we're trying to remember here. But these are the facts of daily existence of the level of your cells. A higher purpose. Every cell agrees to work for the welfare of the whole. Communion. A cell keeps in touch with every other cell. Awareness. Cells adapt from moment to moment. Acceptance. Going it alone is not an option. Creativity. Although every cell has a different function, they combine in unlimited ways to achieve the good of the whole. Have you ever sprained your ankle? And then the other parts of the body take over till the ankle gets well? Or if you have a loss in vision, then suddenly your hearing accelerates? That's what cells automatically do. That's the wisdom of how it's supposed to be. They're efficient. They're bonding. They know that they're in this together. And they know that they are immortal. So in meditation, we listen to the body and the cells pulsating. We listen to our breath. We give instruction to ourselves if we realize that, for instance, my knee's giving me fits today. Well, I can instruct all the energy in my body to go to my knee. We're given that as a child of God. We can do that. Some people don't know that they can do that. You can tell your body you're ageless and timeless. And you can stay aware and so forth a little longer maybe than the other folks. Or maybe there's somebody out there that's just a natural at it. But you have the ability to set all those things into motion. So, what we're all about here is ultimately to know what Jesus told us. The kingdom of God is within us. Every moment, at every turn, take time to become aware of your body and the innate wisdom that it has in conducting life, and pay attention. Namaste.